Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're peeling back the layers on a state known for its maple syrup, its foliage, and its wonderfully serene green mountains, Vermont.
Serene, yeah, maybe on the surface, but judging by the source material you've shared, Vermont also has this, well, deeply unsettling undercurrent.
Right.
We're diving into a pretty fascinating collection of accounts, folklore, and some genuine historical tragedies really centered on the state's most haunted locations.
And our mission here is to move past those, generic ghost story cliches. We want to extract the specific, maybe surprising details that reveal the dark history sort of lurking beneath this tranquil surface. By the time we're done, you'll be quickly and thoroughly informed about the surprising terror residing in the Green Mountain State.
Yeah, we'll explore quite a range. Everything from, say, celebrity apparitions in luxury hotels to these ancient cursed springs.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And even a truly bizarre, real-life Victorian burial safety window. It seems Vermont's history is far stranger than its quiet reputation suggests.
Okay, let's unpack this. Maybe start with the grand, iconic haunts. If you're going to have a ghost, might as well be historically significant, right?
Good place to start. Let's look at the Equinox Golf Resort and Spa in Manchester.
Right, the Equinox.
This place is just steeped in history. It dates way back to 1769, and it's hosted several U.S. presidents over the years.
Wow.
But its most famous spectral resident, that would be Mary Todd Lincoln.
Okay.
She visited in 1864, apparently loved the place, and made reservations to come back the following year, 1865, with President Lincoln.
And here's the detail that really hits home the tragedy of it all. The hotel was so excited, apparently, about the president visiting that they started building a special suite just for him. For the assassinated president, he obviously never checked in.
Exactly. And that sense of lingering tragedy, the memory of what almost happened seems to have kind of attached itself to the resort.
So what do people report seeing or feeling?
Well, guests and staff report seeing Mary's apparition roaming the halls. Sometimes, apparently, she's seen with the spirit of a small child. And the activity is pretty classic haunting stuff. Cold chills, strange whispers, objects moving on their own.
Oh, right.
And that specific annoyance of lights turning on in the middle of the night, startling sleeping guests.
Right, waking people up. That's always unsettling.
Yeah.
Okay, so from the sort of profound sadness of the Lincolns, let's switch gears a bit. There's a far more specific, almost entertaining haunt at the Green Mountain Inn in Stowe.
Ah, yes. They also have a resident spirit, but this one has a very unique talent.
Which is?
Tap dancing.
Tap dancing, seriously.
That's the story. They call him Bootsberry.
Yeah.
The sources describe him as a real local hero, a Samaritan. He was helping out during a heavy snowstorm and tragically fell to his death, but only after rescuing a little girl from the inn's roof.
Wow. Okay, so a genuine hero.
Yeah.
But his continued presence is marked by tap dancing.
Spectral
tap dancing.
That's what they say. It's not just general footsteps or shuffling. It's described as a full-on rhythm.
What does the source material suggest about why a ghost would adopt such a specific activity? Like, why tap dancing?
Well, it could speak to the residual nature of the haunting, Maybe it's not just the trauma of his death, but the energy of his personality, or perhaps a habit he had in life that somehow got etched into the fabric of the building.
So you hear this cheerful, if maybe slightly unsettling, performance of a heroic ghost.
Exactly, a performance from beyond.
That's quite a contrast. And speaking of structures, let's talk about the Dutton house at Shelburne Museum. What's really fascinating here is that the house itself was physically moved.
It was, yeah. Built way back in 1782 in a town called Cavendish. It served all sorts of functions: a store, an inn, a boarding house, a tavern.
Easy place.
Definitely. And it saw its share of tragedy. The records suggest at least 11 deaths happened within its original walls.
11, wow.
Yeah, and then, after sitting abandoned for 40 years, it was moved piece by piece to the museum grounds in 1950.
So if the house was moved, what does that tell us about the haunting? Are the spirits attached to the structure itself, or maybe the land it was originally on?
Well, in this case, it really seems to be the structure. Museum staff today report activity suggesting the spirits kind of came along for the ride.
So they're still there.
Apparently. Staff report seeing an apparition, an older man with a scruffy face, sort of hunkering down under the attic slope. And they also hear the sound of a little girl crying sometimes.
Huh. So the history, the sadness, is literally captive within those walls no matter where they stand.
It seems so. The building itself holds the memory.
Okay, now let's shift from building specifically to the landscape itself. And we have to start with, arguably, the absolute queen of Vermont ghost stories, Emily's Bridge.
Ah, yes, the Goldbrook-covered bridge in Stowe.
That's the one.
The legend here is just so emotionally potent. Emily, the story goes, was jilted by her lover, stood up at the altar or maybe just before.
And in her despair.
She committed suicide. The sources actually vary a bit on how. Some say she drove her carriage right off the bridge into the brook below. Others say she hanged herself from the rafters inside the bridge.
Either way, incredibly tragic. But what makes Emily's haunting stand out, according to the sources, is the reported level of interaction. It's not just passive sightings.
No, definitely not. The spirit, usually described as a white, shadowy figure, is said to be actively hostile, especially toward men who visit the bridge.
Hostile how?
Well, this is where it gets really intense. Visitors report getting these inexplicable scratches and claw marks on their cars.
On their cars?
Yeah, and sometimes even on their own bodies.
Whoa.
Plus, you get reports of disembodied footsteps and this really chilling detail. The sound of ropes tightening.
Okay, that's specific and very creepy. Does the source material offer any insight into why her despair would translate into such, well, physical hostility towards later visitors?
It seems tied to the intensity of that emotional agony, maybe combined with the suddenness of the tragedy, especially being self-inflicted. Her pain is almost literally etched into the wood and stone of that bridge. It's become this site of localized vengeance, maybe?
Vengeance or just lashing out from pain. Okay.
That connection between intense trauma and a persistent haunting, it brings us from a very personal tragedy to something involving mass casualties. The railroad bridge of Hartford, Vermont.
Right. This event sounds truly gruesome. It happened during a bitterly, bitterly cold winter night, late 1800s. There was a fire on the original train trestle, and it caused the Montreal Express train to derail and basically plunge into the icy river and then burn.
The death toll was staggering for the time. 36 people died, and horribly crushed in the wreckage, drowned in the freezing water, or burned alive in the fire that followed.
That's awful.
And the haunting reflects that horror. It's described as the tortured souls just reliving that gruesome event over and over again in perpetuity.
That's a terrifying kind of residual haunting. Just a scene of pure chaos and suffering replaying endlessly. When you think about the scale of trauma like that, yeah, I can see why locals might avoid that spot after dark.
Definitely. And that deep connection between the land and lingering tragedy, it takes almost a mythological turn with the curse of Brunswick Springs up in the Northeast Kingdom.
Okay, tell us about this curse. Where did it come from?
Well, the Abenaki American Indians considered these springs sacred. The waters were known for their natural healing powers.
Right.
But back in 1748, there was some kind of struggle over control of the springs. It resulted in the death of an Abenaki man and, tragically, a baby.
Oh, no.
And the child's mother, who the sources specifically identify as a sorceress, cursed the waters right then and there.
A sorceress's curse. What did the curse entail?
Essentially, that no foreign building, meaning non-Abenaki, would ever successfully stand on that sacred ground. It's like history enforcing a territorial claim through ongoing catastrophe.
And did it work?
Apparently so. The sources are quite clear. Every single attempt afterwards to build resorts or hotels on that property has ended in destruction. They specifically note 4 major hotel fires at the site over the years.
4 fires. Wow, so it's like this ancient, powerful warning that's still being enforced today.
Exactly. The land remembers and enforces.
Okay, so we've seen hauntings tied to buildings, to massive disasters, ancient curses. Let's pivot now to the purely bizarre. Some unique anxieties maybe of the Victorian era manifesting in Vermont.
Yeah.
I want to start with the tomb of Dr. Timothy Clark Smith.
Dr. Smith, yes. He died on Halloween, of all days, in 1893. And he had this overwhelming fear. He was terrified of catching sleeping sickness and being buried alive.
That was a real fear back then, wasn't it? Taphophobia.
It absolutely was. And his fear was so consuming that he designed his own burial vault to literally try and prevent this possibility.
So what did he do?
He constructed this elaborate tomb at Evergreen Cemetery in New Haven, Vermont. It had a burial arch, 2 rooms inside. But the unforgettable feature, the thing everyone talks about,
the window,
is that small viewing window built right into the structure, positioned over where his face would be.
Seriously, a window into his tomb.
Yep. It allowed visitors, or maybe a groundskeeper, to literally check on him, just in case he, woke up.
Wow. That is the ultimate architectural expression of better safe than sorry, isn't it? It perfectly showcases that morbid but very real Victorian anxiety about premature burial.
Couldn't have put it better myself.
Okay, from that very specific Victorian paranoia, let's move to sheer geographical mystery. The Bennington Triangle, specifically the area around Glastonbury Mountain. This phenomenon isn't so much about ghosts, you see. It's about people who simply vanish.
Right. The sources focus on this distinct cluster of disappearances. They were unexplained, unsolved, and mostly happened between about 1920 and 1950.
And what makes the area itself so unsettling? It's not just the disappearances, is it?
No, it's the descriptions of the environment itself. The details are just eerie.
Like what?
Like reports of hiking trails just abruptly stopping, ending for no reason in the middle of the woods. And the whole area is described as being unnaturally quiet.
Unnaturally quiet.
Yeah, that quietness seems key psychologically. Visitors report that the area feels devoid of life, like no animals scurrying around, no birds singing, an almost total absence of sound that suggests something is fundamentally wrong there, with the ecosystem itself, maybe.
So it's like this vast, silent void that just swallows people whole without leaving a trace.
That's the feeling it evokes, yeah. Deeply unsettling.
Okay, sticking with tragic landscapes, we talked about tragedies etched into the land. The Huntington Gorge definitely fits, but it's more of a modern tragedy location, right? Known as the swimming hole of death.
Yeah, that nickname tells you a lot. The statistics alone are sobering enough to make anyone cautious. There's actually a sign at the gorge indicating that 22 visitors have lost their lives there just since 1950.
22? That's a lot for one swimming hole.
It is. The natural environment is deceptively beautiful, but the undercurrents are notoriously strong and the rocks are incredibly treacherous. It's just inherently dangerous.
So the natural danger is definitely severe. But of course, local lore attributes the deaths to something maybe more sinister.
Absolutely. You always get that layer of folklore, don't you? The local legend suggests the gorge contains a vengeful spirit.
A spirit?
Yeah, one that needs to feed its hunger, supposedly, every year with a new victim.
Okay, so it's a way of trying to personify or explain the random, terrifying power of nature, turning it into a personalized threat.
Exactly. It's a classic piece of folklore, really, trying to make sense of inexplicable danger and repeated tragedy.
All right, to wrap up our very strange tour of Vermont, we absolutely have to mention the unexpected case of the ancient Egyptian mummy in Middlebury. You really don't expect to find that kind of artifact, well, anywhere in Vermont, let alone a junk shop.
No, you definitely do not. But apparently, a local junk dealer named Henry Sheldon purchased this mummy back in 1866.
Just bought a mummy.
Seems so. And it wasn't just any mummy. Later identified as Amun-Herkhpesh F, the infant son of an Egyptian king, Senwosret III, mummified way back in 1883 BC.
Wait, an Egyptian prince from nearly 4,000 years ago ends up in a junk shop in Vermont.
That's the story. The historical displacement alone is just astounding, isn't it?
Completely. So what happened to the prince after Sheldon died? He didn't stay in the junk shop, did he?
No. Sheldon housed the mummy in his personal collection, which eventually became a museum. But after Sheldon passed away, the subsequent museum director decided that, keeping an infant prince displayed alongside local trinkets was maybe inappropriate.
Yeah, probably a good call.
They decided it was best to inter the mummy properly, give him a final resting place.
And the resolution was, well, just as strange as the discovery, wasn't it?
It really was. In 1945, the mummy was actually cremated.
Cremated, an Egyptian mummy.
Yes, and the ashes were finally buried at West Cemetery in Middlebury. A very, very unorthodox end for Egyptian royalty, cremated and interred in Vermont soil, thousands of years after his life, thousands of miles from home.
It's just incredible. It really is incredible how all these individual stories kind of coalesce, isn't it?
Yeah.
We start talking about serene Vermont, and we've ended up discussing a state really defined by sudden tragedy, by isolation, and these historical claims and energies that just refuse to die.
Yeah, if you try to connect this to the bigger picture, Vermont's spectral lore seems heavily influenced by that sheer isolation you find in the rural landscape, and maybe the severity, the suddenness of its accidents and tragedies, whether it's the tap dancer sort of permanently attached to his heroic final moments, or Mary Todd Lincoln still pacing those hotel halls. You see history repeating itself, or at least echoing, in these powerful, specific, spectral reenactments.
So whether you're, say, driving past the site of that awful Hartford Railroad disaster, or maybe carefully crossing Emily's Bridge, these stories really remind you that knowledge, history, it doesn't just come from textbooks, does it? It comes from the collective memory of the land itself, sometimes painful memory, often expressed through these incredibly unique hauntings.
And this maybe raises an important final question for you, the listener, to consider. In a place like Vermont, so full of this rugged history, these sudden, unexpected voids, what are the most frightening places? Are they the ones haunted by specific, recognizable individuals you know, like Bootsbury or Mary Todd Lincoln? Or are they the vast, quiet landscapes like Glastonbury Mountain that seem to simply swallow secrets whole and refuse to give them up? Something to mull over, perhaps, the next time you find yourself hearing only silence on a quiet mountain trail.